Gender politics has been especially contentious, and we especially saw that with Gen Z. The young men, well, typically young people are more liberal than they are conservative, but young men fell down the alt-right pipeline, the red pill pipeline, and they took a hard turn right. They took a hard turn towards Donald Trump and the Republicans. There is a poll that came out from NBC News, and this poll is this is very interesting. It says Gen Z's gender divide reaches beyond politics and in its views on marriage, children, and success. And this is everything that we have been talking about. I talk about relationships and politics, and it all goes together. Women and men they're getting further apart because the politics is personal and the personal is political. And these dudes, they said, we're going to vote against your rights. And the women said, all right, then we're not messing with you no more. And so politics is personal and the personal is political. Let's get into this. Not the whole article, but I'm trying to get to this poll in particular, but I'll come right back to this. Let's do a little bit of the article before I go back to that poll. It says the gender gap between men and women has been a durable fact of life in American politics, and nowhere is this gap larger than among the youngest cohort of American adults, Gen Z. The oldest Gen Z right now is 28. All right, it says, but it's not just politics driving the divide. The latest NBC News Decision Desk poll, powered by SurveyMonkey, shows how the gender politic gap persists alongside different social beliefs between young men and women. Gender divides within adults age 18 to 29 show up in questions ranging from how Americans feel about President Donald Trump to their views on what constitutes success. Young men and young women also feel very different about mental health, cultural issues, and question about gender in the workplace. Among Gen Z overall, 64 disapprove of Trump's job performance versus 36 who approve, but young men were more evenly split, 53% disapprove, 47% approve, than young women, 74% disapprove, 26% approve. The 21-point difference in Trump's approval rating is unchanged from April. So the results of this poll, people were asked to pick their top 3 choices out of 13 for importance: getting a career that they loved, getting married, having babies, and all of that. So they were supposed to pick their top 3. The first column, women for Harris. Then we have men for Harris. Then we have women for Trump. And then we have men for Trump. And I've talked about this. These conservative dudes want to be married and have kids more than these liberal women. And I already said that the divergence between the two is already so big. And you can see that with having babies and getting married. So the women that voted for Harris, they ranked being married at 11 and having children at 12. So way far at the bottom. So what they saw is number 1, getting a career, number 2, getting some money, and then number 3, having some emotional stability. So that is what the women for Harris says. Let's go over here to the men for Trump because they are all the way on the other spectrum. Number 1, having babies. Number 4, being married. So they do want to have a fulfilling career, but it's number 3, and achieving financial independence is number 2. So it's up there, but having babies and getting married is so high up. But who are they going to have these babies with and get married to? Because so many of the women are they put it way down the list. Even the women that voted for Trump, they said number 6 is having children, and number 9 is being married. Women want to have babies and get married much less than the men do, except these dudes that voted for Harris, they pushed all this stuff down too. Being married and having kids, 9 and 10 on their list. Gen Z men who voted for Trump rate having children as the most important thing in their personal definition of success. Gen Z women who voted for Harris ranked having children as their second least important thing in their personal definition of success. This goes right along with everything that we have been saying, especially since we do know that women these days are having babies later. Women are going to school. Women are getting their careers together before having babies. And this poll just goes right along with that. Women are having children, like the average age right now is about 30. So this all it follows. And these are like I said, the oldest Gen Z person is 28. So these women, they're like, let's get the finances together, let's get the schooling together, and I am here for it. And this part right here that I'm about to say, young female Harris voters also ranked emotional stability as the third most important thing in their personal definition of success, something that young men who voted for Trump ranked second to last. So, like when you get on social media and you see these men and they're talking about women, and all women want is, 666, six figures, 6 feet tall, six, whatever the last six is. I keep trying to tell them that no, that is not what women want. Women want a man that is emotionally available, emotionally intelligent. And this poll kind of brings that out. And the fact that they rank it so low says that they are not worried about being emotionally stable. This poll really shows why there is such a divergence in politics and gender relations as far as relationships. This part right here just answers the question for female and male. It says, which of the following is important to your personal definition of success? And I think that this is important for men to know and understand about women, because our top three are the same for men and women. Having a fulfilling job and career, same. Number one for both men and women. Number two, having enough money to do the things you want to do, same for men and women. Number two. Number three, achieving financial independence, both number three for both men and women. So women are wanting to have their careers and their money together, and having children is all the way down here, 10 and 11. But for men is up here 7 and 8. More men want to have babies and get married than women. That is where we are right now with politics and gender relations. This goes perfectly with team let the birth rate plummet to hell. The birth rate is going to continue to plummet to hell because women do not want to get married and have kids. And the way that men keep voting to restrict women's rights means that women are going to continue to lean into their careers and being financially independent. This is going to continue to have a divergence unless these dudes start to see women as equals and want to come together and partner with women. So I don't believe that things are going to change dramatically. All right, so please join the conversation. Let me know what you think about all of this. I saw that this was very interesting, but I do want to know what you think. I'm on team let the birth rate plummet to hell. I say that several times a week. I say it multiple times a day. And it's because women and children are not safe in this world, this patriarchy that sets it up so it's way too expensive and it's unsafe. And so these world leaders will continue to hand wring. So let's start this off with Greece. Greece announces $1.6 billion euro relief package to tackle population decline. They keep wanting to throw money at the situation and not get to the root of the problem, but let's look at this article. Government to use tax breaks and other financial incentives to encourage people to have more children, aka Hunch for Humanity. Greece has announced drastic measures, including tax breaks and other financial incentives, to address a population decline that is on course to make it the oldest nation in Europe. The Prime Minister said the 1.6 billion euros or the 1.4 billion pounds relief package had been dictated by one of the biggest challenges facing the Mediterranean nation, a demographic crisis of unprecedented scale. We know that the cost of living is one thing if you don't have a child, and another if you have 2 or 3 children, Kyriakos Mitsotakis said on Sunday after announcing the policies. So, as a state, we should find a way to reward our citizens who make the choice of having children. The measures, which range from a 2 percentage point reduction for all tax brackets to a 0 rate for low-income families with 4 children, will be rolled out in 2026, says Mitsotakis. He called the package the boldest tax reform enforced in Greece in more than 50 years. The policies build on other initiatives by the center-right government to tackle the issue. With fertility rates in Greece among the lowest in Europe at 1.4 children a woman, The reproduction rate is well below the replacement level of 2.1. Mitsotakis has called the problem a national threat. The Greek population is on course to fall from the current 10.2 million to well under 8 million by 2050, when 36% will be above age 65, according to Eurostat. Acknowledging the decline had assumed existential proportions. Finance Minister Kyriakos Pyrrhikakis said the fertility rates had halved since the start of the country's economic crisis 15 years ago. Our taxation reform will give great emphasis to this problem. As head of the economic team, I'd say our top priority is the demographic issue. Greece's near-decade-long crisis has been widely blamed for the alarming drop. This is partly because younger people were among those hardest hit by austerity measures required in return for international rescue funds that kept bankruptcy at bay and debt-ridden Athens in the EU. Listen to this part right here. More than 500,000 Greeks left the country in search of work during the crisis, an exodus of mostly young and talented citizens the government is trying to reverse. I pulled this out and I want to highlight this part because obviously Greece is a country, but in some states here in the United States, because of certain political climates, it's going to cause an exodus like this. And just like, obviously Greece is a country, there are going to be some states in the United States that get so old so quickly because of young people leaving because of politics. Is going to be very interesting to watch. And I watch all of this not in a vacuum, because many of the same things that are going on in other countries are happening right here, just, on a state to state level. The latest measures, which include dropping tax obligations for those living in rural settlements with fewer than 1,500 residents, will be funded with money from the fiscal surplus as the economy has recovered. And I wanted to bring that out as well, because we're going to have rural communities here in the United States that are so old. It's just going to be a bunch of old people because the young people are escaping as quickly as they can. It says officials say falling fertility rates are putting the pension and health systems, as well as labor markets and national security, at unprecedented risk at a time of geopolitical uncertainty. Sounding the alarm, the British medical journal The Lancet said demographic change of such radical proportions posed an inherent threat to the country's health system, along with socioeconomic pressures and the unpredictability of the climate crisis. Greece faces a complex array of public health challenges driven by demographic change, it said in a study released last week. The Greek case offers valuable lessons for other countries confronting similar pressures. In 2020, a year after first winning office, the Mitsotakis government unveiled a baby bonus to encourage childbirth. The subsidy since then risen from 1,700 euros for the first child to euros for a fourth, in addition to a monthly stipend of up to 140 euros per child. Somebody over there in Europe, please tell me if $140 per month, euros per month is enough to raise a child over in Europe. But as the cost of living also soars in a country with some of the lowest wages in the EU, the policies appear to have had little effect. Greece's education ministry announced this month that it had closed more than 700 schools nationwide, citing a lack of pupils. With his government popularity dented by corrupted claims and cost of living concerns, Mitsotakis vowed to increase pensions and affordable housing by constructing properties on abandoned military facilities. A real estate tax in remote areas will also be scrapped to encourage young people to move to the countryside, where prices are often a far cry from those in the cities. Unaffordable housing is such that younger Greeks frequently complain they are forced to live with their parents into their 30s, another reason raised for the lack of interest in having children. What do you do in the countryside when you are a young person? Young people move away so they can be around other people and things to do. This is the end of the article. They are still not addressing things. Do men participate in raising their children? Are women still, shouldering just about everything? I need people to talk about the social pressures and the things that women go through The safety measures, are women safe in Greece? I don't know these answers because I'm not there, but these are the things that women keep talking about. When are men going to step up and do their part in raising their children? Yes, they want to continue to talk about the pensions, the labor force, who's going to take care of the elderly. They talk about these same things across all of these countries that are facing these things, but they still refuse to listen to the different things that women are saying for the reasons why they refuse to have children. Let me know what you think about this. If you are in this area, please definitely chime in. Still talking birth rate, let's move over into Britain. It says, what does the falling birth rate mean for the British economy? Fertility rate has hit an all-time low in England and Wales. How will this impact the country, and what's the solution? Last week, UK government figures showed the birth rate in England and Wales tumbled to a record low. The Office for National Statistics, or ONS, said the fertility rate, the number of children born to each woman, fell to 1.41 children per woman in 2024. That is the third year running that it has dropped, and the lowest since it began records 90 years ago. It is widely accepted that the birth rate of 2.1 is required to sustain a population at its current level. This means the population of the United Kingdom is likely to fall over time, presenting a political and economic problem for Keir Starmer's Labour government, which is already facing a storm of protests over immigration and a stagnant economy. Now, wasn't it Brexit that caused these people to have to move away and caused the immigration issues and the economy issues? Someone's going to have to weigh in on if this is a consequence of their own making or leopards eating their face. Someone's going to have to weigh in. The birth rate figures cut to the heart of both of these issues and split the political narrative in ways that are difficult to address. It pits those who say there are too many people already in the UK and that immigration needs to stop against those who say that without more people in a younger population, which can be addressed by allowing more immigration, the economy will stagnate. Even Tesla and SpaceX founder Elon Musk got involved in the debate, posting on X, low birth rate is the number one threat to the West, followed closely by immigration. Why is the birth rate falling in the UK? According to the report from the ONS, people in England and Wales are choosing to have children later in life than they did in previous decades. The average age of a new mother is 31, up from 29 2 decades ago. The average age of a father is 33.9, which is basically 34, up from 32.1 in 2004. This has been put down to rising housing and childcare costs and an uncertain employment landscape. Businesses complain that rising taxes or the threat of them means they are nervous about hiring staff. In particular, an increase in the national insurance contributions paid by employers has hit jobs in some sectors hard. What effect will a falling birth rate have on the UK's economy in the short term? In the short term, a falling birth rate will actually modestly improve the UK's finances, said Simon French, chief economist at Panmure Gordon. The first 16 years of children are a net drag on economic activity as they require funding and childcare. Paul Dales, chief UK economist at Capital Economics, added, I suppose some positives are that it reduces the pressure on the health and education systems over the next 15 to 20 years, and it may mean that 20 to 40-year-olds have a bit more money to spend than otherwise. And in the long term, a lower birth rate tends to result in a lower rate of economic growth, as eventually there are fewer people working than otherwise. And as the average age of death is rising, this also adds to the fiscal pressures, as it means in the future a smaller share of the population will be working and a larger share will be retired. After an initial gain in finances, therefore, the longer-term prospects are poorer. Thereafter, you have yourself a problem if the cohorts are unequal. So much of the state we're in is the result of treating the baby boom era as stable, when a larger cohort of workers pay lots of income tax and insufficient planning for a stable financing setup when they get old. These issues will become very apparent by the middle part of this century if the birth rate continues to fall rapidly, he said. Some economists also worry that in the future there will not be enough people of working age to support those who have retired. The ratio of pensioners to working age people is rising. There were 280 pensioners per 1,000 workers in 2020. That is expected to reach 393 per 1,000 in 2070. This is a major problem as retired people in the UK receive a state pension paid from the national insurance contribution of those in work now rather than from the money they themselves paid in while working. It's a whole Ponzi scheme, or MLM. They did not plan very well, as they were, and they said that in the article above. They didn't plan very well. All of these people used to be working. Now they're retiring, but whoever was in charge did not plan for these people to retire. Why does a falling birth rate harm economic growth? Simply, more people almost automatically equals a bigger economy. Fewer people, a smaller one. Some say the correct issue is to consider not gross GDP on its own, but GDP per capita, per head. Many people in the UK feel their personal circumstances have not improved for years. And I wonder, why is it? Why haven't their personal circumstances improved? Is it the politics? Someone weigh in. Philip Shaw, UK economist at Investec, said in the short term, a low birth rate appears quite benign as it takes some pressure off public services such as schools and the NHS. But if this were to continue in the years ahead, it would mean that the ratio of people working to each person not working, i.e., those either side of working age, will fall further, putting more pressure on the public finances and, in all likelihood, taxation. A fertility rate of 1.41 is very low in this respect, although it's not out of line with other major countries. This year, the birth rate in France is 1.64 and in the US is 1.62. I believe we here in the United States could get this lower. We can get to 1.4 if we really keep trying. Let the birth rate plummet to hell. All right, it says it is the highest in countries like Afghanistan, 4.66, and Chad, 5.94, according to figures from the CIA's study of birth rates. And in countries like Afghanistan and Chad, do women have autonomy? Do women have access to birth control? Can they control their own lives? So, we have to compare countries where there are rights, as far as equal rights or somewhat equal rights. What's the solution? There's no obvious fix, experts say. Investec's Shaw said, there most certainly is a tension between looking at the evidence that the UK is overpopulated and saying that we need more people in the future to support those not working. There is no easy answers to this, and unless we benefit from an AI productivity miracle, compromises will have to be made. Tax rises and increased government borrowing seem highly likely to meet the rising cost of an aging population. Allowing immigration from other countries with younger populations might seem like a solution, but the UK and other Western countries are currently seeing protests against immigration rates because many of these countries are racist. All right, it says, this week, the government said it is suspending a scheme enabling registered refugees to bring family members into the country amid soaring support for the far right in opinion polls, aka racism. The move was announced as Labour returned to Parliament after a summer break that has seen anti-immigration protesters repeatedly targeting hotels, housing asylum seekers across England, most recently in Epping, northeast of London, on Sunday. Reform UK, the party led by Nigel Farage, which is at present riding high in the polls, has become popular for its anti-immigration stance. It says the UK needs a complete 180 shift in attitudes and blames crime on immigrants. ONS figures actually show that crimes against households and individuals have fallen the last 10 years rather than rising, however. Instead, anti-immigration parties such as Reform want people to have more babies. Forget immigration, just have more babies. We're trying to cut immigration drastically, a Reform UK spokesperson said. At the same time, to fix that population crisis, we're trying to encourage British people already here to have kids. They will do this by scrapping the 2-child benefit cap, which limits state support for the first 2 children. Farage also promises a larger tax break for married couples. These countries are doing so many very, very similar things. We have Project 2025 here. We have white nationalists here. We have the Heritage Foundation all pushing for more white babies. And that's what it sounds like the Reform Party and the UK are doing as well. More white babies, less brown babies. Y'all go ahead and weigh in. I am still on team let the birth rate plummet to hell all over the place. Let the birth rate plummet to hell. This world does not deserve more babies.